Hey, it's Ed here. Today we're taking a look at technical analysis for Bitcoin. On this video, we'll go through the complete Bitcoin price chart and label the whole thing through to give some possible counts for Bitcoin on higher time frame. So today again, we're starting with the BLX chart or the symbol, so you can be tracking your counts as well here on very high time frame. Again, this is only available on daily time frames and higher, but again, this is giving us a lot of the history that most of the other exchanges don't have. The unfortunate thing about this one is, again, it is not giving us the whole history of Bitcoin. For that, we have some other valuable sources, but again, this is giving us the most that we can have on Tradingview. Again, we can see that it is starting all the way from here around August 2010 and going back or going to the current price as well. So as I mentioned, this does not start with the lows that we had originally. So instead of labeling what we don't see here, we're just going to be skipping this first one into here, into these highs. Again, there's a couple of different ways to look at this. We could be labeling this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and basing that labeling just based on this RSI high here, that could be the third of third. And that would be, this would be the third of third, so this would be the third, fourth, and fifth. So generally, if we want to be labeling this, we could be having this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. After that point, we have a nice 95% correction or 94% correction, and then have this as a wave 2. That is very good looking in my opinion. Again, we are using the logarithmic chart, otherwise we're just going to be using this. And of course, while this is somewhat valuable, we could be easily saying that, okay, that is a wave 3, that is a wave 4, and that is a wave 5. We are completely missing the internal wave structures. So let's take a closer look here what we have here. In any case, this here, we can see some kind of price data here. Again, the lowest low is actually this low here, so we have to be adjusting that. This for sure is some kind of impulse wave. We don't need to be going through that whole thing too much, but the thing here is on logarithmic scale. Again, we are seeing that, okay, we have this kind of move. Is this a 1, 2, 1, 2, or is this some kind of 1, 2, 3 already completed? Again, we don't have really high RSI here on daily time frame other than this very tip top of third, so we should be going to the smaller time frames and most likely saying that, okay, that is actually the third of third, because again, most likely had higher RSI on smaller time frames. But again, as we can't go through that, we're just going to have to label this as a third of something now. Also, if we are looking at this on arithmetic scale, let's use the auto here. We can see that it is somewhat of a large spike here in comparison to this first structure. So if we are just using this expanded structure, or this expanded, not expanded, what is it? Fibonacci extension tool, there we go. We can see that it is going well past the 1.6 when it's going past the 2 to 1 extension, meaning that there is a possible chance that this is a 1, 2, and this would be 3, 4. And then the whole next thing here would be a massive fifth extension. Again, these are the early times or early areas where Bitcoin could have done that, going from $8 to $270 in, what is this, 231 days. We can't imagine that nowadays, unfortunately, but that is something that the early adapters could have enjoyed. Now, let's continue on this because we still have quite a few things to look at. So this was, again, potential 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, we don't have overlap between the first and fourth on logarithmic scale again, so this is getting a bit skewed. We don't need to be worrying about this because, again, this here is extension by 14,000% for the wave 3. So again, it is definitely not small. So the next structure, if we are looking at that, what we could be seeing is most likely this structure up to these highs. December 17 or 2017 is giving us that area that where we have a lot lot of the price is starting to come down, and this is most likely ending something. Also, RSI is telling us that we're going to get another low here, giving us the potential that this whole structure that we have here is ended, and that is definitely the case here. So how do we label this? Is just again look for the higher pumps, and then the most next more local lows. Again, that's because again these lows here are actually the lowest. We can't have 1-2s here at all, so we have to be placing that as the wave 2. Now the next thing is to find a wave 3. Is it here up in these highs? I guess it could, but then we would have overlap between the first and fourth. So that is one possibility. Other one is that we have this as a 1-2. Then after that we would have this as another 1-2. Is this another 1-2-1-2, or maybe something else? Is not very good looking. One could say that we have some kind of barrier triangle here, but this is again here higher than the previous low or previous high, so we can't have that either. So there is a potential that we have this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and this at that point again we would have to be doing that. Also, we are going to be adjusting this this lower trend line just based on the current structures instead of the wave 4, because if we are labeling it on the wave 4 here, or using the trend line into wave 4, we are already overlapping this price structure here, and that can't really be happening. So I do think that this is pretty okay looking, having this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I feel like all of these can be viewed in 3-wave fashion. 1, 2, well, this is most likely some kind of complex structure here if we want to be labeling as such. And then we would have something like this here as well. Not the prettiest structures for sure, but that is one way to label it. This would again bring us to a wave 1, 2 here, and this would again be a bit higher time frame or higher degree. Another 1, 2 here, if we are looking at RSI, I don't think we have another 1, 2, 1, 2 scenario, because again, this low here on RSI is lower. So that would give me at least more confidence to say that we have this as a 1, 2, 1, 2, or 1, 2 instead of a 1, 2, 1, 2. This would be a 3, 4, but the issue I have here is that we don't really have any kind of alteration here if we are placing the third up in here. So I think this might be actually a third of third, and if we are looking at RSI again, this here would be actually third of third of third. So it would make sense that, okay, we have something like this, and this is actually here. So again, divergence between the third and fifth is expected. And then third, fourth, and fifth. We might be in a bit too high time frame for this to see any kind of divergence between the third and third of third, between the third and third of third and the third of fifth here, because again here we can see the highest RSI actually is at the top. This is not very general or very common to see, but again is something that definitely can happen. Now we are getting back to the more used or more seen structures here, so we don't really get anything new here at the moment, at least I don't think. There is only a few things that this whole thing can be. This is definitely a correction down to here, again lowest RSI, that is giving us the potential of being the start of the next impulse wave. 1, 2, this looks again a corrective 3-way structure, and then we have this as some kind of a 3, 4, and 5. At least that's the way I currently have it labeled on higher time frame in any of the scenarios that I'm watching at the moment. Now that we have already given all of the impulse wave structures some kind of form, and they are pretty okay looking, we can start to analyze the higher time frame and seeing what kind of counts we are actually having here. So if we are just looking at the overall structures here on RSI, I feel like this is going to be giving us the most info regarding the higher time frame. The only issue that we have is the start of this whole structure is very, very weird, and the RSI is not very low at all from the very lows. So again, this might be giving us some false signals. So what can we actually look at or check out on this chart? The first thing that we note is the highs. This is the highest high here on RSI. This generally happens on a third of third. So at this point again, we could be saying that we have a third of third. We have divergence between here, but again, this is the first structure that we have. Could it be that this indeed is the first structure of a very high time frame structure? That is definitely a very much of a possibility. So if we are labeling this as the first of super cycle, and then this would be this cycle, that is definitely a possibility. Because again, the next structures that we have here onwards don't go anywhere beyond these. Generally, again, on higher time frames and definitely on the thirds of thirds, we are getting the highest RSI numbers. If the next highs here that we are getting are not going past these, then we can't really assume that we are on the third of third. And if this is again, this low here is held, then we can be still in that third of third. The only thing that we can see here is that we have actually taken out this low. This is very concerning to me, and this is the exact reason why I haven't really touched on the very high time frame. Not only because that, but of course I don't really trade the higher time frame that much, because you can't really trade it. You just invest into it and hope for the best, I guess. But this RSI low here is somewhat signaling that whatever we had before it is actually done. And I don't really want to be saying that. I don't want to really believe that, because again, there is so many different views you can have, and I don't completely trust on basically only RSI. So again, there are a few different ideas here on higher time frame that we have. Now, if we are just ignoring this low here for the moment, we could be looking this as again another 1-2. So we did not take out the previous lows or the previous highs, sorry. But again, it was definitely a 5-way structure here onwards. So it is most likely at least 1 degree lower. Of course, could it be a lower than this cycle? Sure, it could be. It could be even primary. And this would be giving us some higher or larger wave 3 of this super cycle. But again, we don't have any data to back that up at the moment, so we can just label it as a 1-2. Now, the next structure that we are expecting is the third of this cycle. Can we place it here, up on these tops? No, we can't, because again, we are crossing these highs. So we can't really place a wave 3 here of this and be expecting a wave 4, because again, the higher time frame expectation is that we are on a third of something. A third can never have a diagonal in it. So this structure, whatever we have it, is going to be a impulse wave structure. All of these wave 1s surely can be diagonals like we had in here, but the higher time frame whole structure can't be a diagonal, right? So that's why we can't have that as the a third and fourth. So what do? We go 1 degree lower. This is another possible 1-2. 1 degree lower. So this is going to give us a very, very bullish count for Bitcoin. Where is the invalidation for this? Well, the only invalidation at the moment is these lows here, 31.48. That is very, very low in comparison to the current price that we have. That would be another 8% coming down. And that is unfortunately so far away from the current price that we have that it is not really giving us anything to analyze with. On S&P 500, we have had those higher time frame counts that are saying that breaking certain levels closer, definitely closer than this one, basically the March 2020 lows, is giving us more of that collapse scenario. In Bitcoin, that collapse scenario is only at 3K. Do I think that we are going to go there? No, I don't, but not at least yet. I do think that whatever we have here is still not complete, and this way too possibly is going to be taking longer. The only thing that we have here at the moment is the comparison between the previous time that we had for that previous wave 2 of a higher degree in comparison to the current one. And what do we see is exactly where we have it right now, at least on a weekly time frame. So if we go to back to daily, we are actually, let's make sure that we are close enough here to give us some kind of a, yeah, it is close enough. And this one here is close enough. We can see that it is actually starting to be bigger than the previous wave structure. And that is something that is a bit concerning. Could this be something that is actually larger and in a different time frame or different degree than this one? I'm not quite sure. But that is just something that you definitely need to be keeping in mind. Now, before making too much conclusions about this, we definitely need to be measuring and comparing the previous two wave 2s as well here. In this case, again, the lower degree wave 2 was actually smaller than the higher degree wave 2. That is definitely normal. So there's nothing really to get from the comparison of these two. This is the one that is actually giving us some weird things, or saying that there is something weird going on, that this might be something else. But I think that is the basic and how I would be constructing this this structure at the moment, and that would be including the RSI. That is the exact reason why I don't really have a too bearish scenario at the moment. If this high here would have been higher on RSI, would have taken out these highs, and then we would have divergence between these, then the whole situation would be a bit different. So what did I have here on this structure? Again, this is the main scenario that I went through with you, that we built from scratch. There are of course other possibilities, such as this, where we had this as the third. Again, why I don't prefer it is just because, again, that we did not have a high on RSI. However, this is still possible. On this one, the expectation is that we have already cleared this as a 1-2. This here would be another 1-2. And yeah, the reason why I don't like this as well is that because we did take out the previous lows on RSI. Generally that doesn't happen, but something here is going on as well that I don't want to get too much involved at the moment. But yeah, this is a bit concerning as well. This low RSI is something that we haven't had even on monthly time frame before, and we are still going downwards. On weekly, we have touched this trend line a couple of times, or now this would be the third time and rejected off of it, but there is definitely a possibility where we would be just collapsing more. But again, the thing is that on RSI we are very on the oversold area, so that is something positive, I guess, if you want to be seeing something there. But yeah, that's basically that. But coming back to this count, while this is still possible, it is not my favorite. And on this one, again, we would be expecting a wave 4. This wave 4 would be getting all the way down to that 3K area that I was talking about. Here we would have that third wave and fourth wave. Generally, higher time frame higher degree wave 4s go back to the previous wave 3s and wave 4s, somewhere around this area. And now we have done that. We are right around there now. If we go and break these previous wave 4 lows, then the probability shifts that this is no longer a wave 4. Again, this is not my main count, so I don't really track this too much. This is just there to be there. Again, one thing to track, but or just have as a possibility, I guess. Then there is, of course, one more bullish ultra bull count where we would have this as 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. While I do agree that these two 1-2s here are different, I'm not quite sure if I can agree that these two are different and not part of the same degree. As we saw in the previous count that I showed you, there is definitely a possibility where we just label this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 is massive in comparison to wave 1 here, and so is 5th, although it looks very small in time or in price. If we are just looking at on arithmetic scale and going back to the start, basically, we can see that this here was the wave 1 and wave 2. Wave 1 to the $30, wave 3 to the $260, and wave 5 to the 1,000. So you can see definitely that there is a massive difference, although on log scale it just looks like that. But those are the 3 counts that I'm actually looking at. The main count still being this one that we went through and built while we were just looking at the price charts. But I hope that gave you some info and the expectations I have for Bitcoin. Again, those are very, very bullish. Of course, there are more bearish counts saying that we could have this as the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of some degree. For example, this degree, if we had this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But again, the reason why I don't like that is that we don't have divergence between these two. And yeah, that is basically the reason. The good thing about this count that we would have is that we have already broken this low, or broken the previous lows. And this is actually the only thing that fits into this count, unfortunately. But that is the case. And that might be some kind of reality at some point. So this is definitely something, this is the worst case scenario where we have this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is probably not super cycle, but let's just use it as cycle. And get rid of that and get rid of all these things here. But this is the bear count. While I don't like it, because again we didn't have the divergence here, this is still possible. This is still possible. And it would be definitely anybody's guess how much we are going to be actually retracing here. So we'll see about that later on. But I think that is going to do it for this video. I think this has gone way long enough, and hopefully you got something out of it. And the reason is why I had the counts the way I had it. But if you enjoyed it, leave me a like and a comment possibly on the video. And yeah, that's going to do it. If you enjoyed, again, join the Discord, share your accounts on higher time frame Bitcoin or any other assets, and we can talk about them there as well. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next video as well. Bye bye.